You can change the face, but that doesn't mean you change the soul. And the Jaguar F-Type has long been about stirring your senses. Good news then, after the F-Type's nip and tuck face work, your soul is still in good hands here. So the main updates to the 2021 F-Type revolve around the exterior and interior updates. But let's talk about the shape of things first. The LED headlights are slim, and the LED lights out back have been tweaked as well. This F-Type is still haunch heavy and appears ready to pounce forward, sticking true to its Jaguar name. The vents and bumper space have been reworked, and the aero has been improved overall to help reduce drag. Swing into the cabin space into an area that Jaguar refers to as 1+1. That's a nod to the fact that this two-seater is heavily driver-focused. Behind the steering wheel sits a new 12.3-inch high-definition digital gauge cluster. It features 3 display modes with a very large TAC sitting central to the default setting. Apple CarPlay and Android Auto are both standard features, and the F-Type is set up to receive over-the-air updates for its software. In terms of comfort options, you can opt for a sport or a performance version with your seat. Standard on the F-Type R are the more heavily bolstered performance version. They're an option on the standard F-Type and F-Type R-Dynamic. Jaguar offers a range of power plant choices on the F-Type, with cylinder counts ranging from 4 to 6 on up to 8. The base engine is a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder unit making 296 horsepower and sending power to the rear wheels. There's a supercharged 3-liter V6 that makes 380 horsepower, and the mighty 5-liter supercharged V8 you see here on the F-Type R makes 575 horsepower. There is no more SVR model. Both the 6 and 8-cylinder models are only offered with all-wheel drive, and all F-Types are fitted with an 8-speed gearbox. So I'm happy to report that they haven't hurt the driving dynamics of the F-Type. This remains a very fun car to drive, especially when you grab a paddle, give it the beans, because the noise adds a lot to the overall driving enjoyment of this vehicle. Now, I will say that it feels not as shouty as I remember past F-Types. If you put the exhaust of those into the most aggressive mode, they were just constantly barking and snapping and popping and making crazy noises. This one, below 3,500, it's relatively tame, and then you get it over 3,500 and it all comes back and is the exact F-Type that you remember. But this one does have the familiar driving modes, the toggle switch down here, you put it into dynamic, and then when it's in dynamic, you can press a little racing helmet on the screen and further refine it. I like engine, gear shift, and steering in dynamic, and I like suspension in comfort, because it's a little on the stiff side for my liking when it is in full dynamic. It would be nice on a racetrack, but I haven't touched a racetrack in a while, so around town, this is the way they're doing it. It is nice to be able to fine-tune the driving experience to one that suits what you want to get out of it. It's a car that drives the way it looks. It's sharp and aggressive, and you can drive it as such, but because it is still a Jag, you can back things down and slow everything down. I have the gearbox in sport mode, and in sport mode, if you grab a paddle, it stays in the manual shift mode. But if you hold the right paddle, it goes back to automatic, staying in sport mode. So that's kind of a nice feature. Some cars you have to put it back to the normal driving mode. The brakes are good. The steering feel is nice and light. The car feels surprisingly tossable, but it's an aluminum skin Jag, so that's not that surprising. As far as sports car cabin spaces go, this one is a nice one. You have this lovely sunroof right here, which is nice and big for the space and lets in a good amount of light. Close it up if you don't want the sun on you, but it is nice that this is tinted, obviously. The cockpit, as they've said, 1+1, so it is very driver focused. You have a grab bar separating from the passenger seat, not to mention the center stack and all that stuff. But the shift lever I don't want to say falls easily to hand because that's cliche, but it is in a really good spot. The steering wheel feels really comfortable in your hands. All in all, this is a car that is set up for driver enjoyment. And hopefully passenger enjoyment if they like sitting there grabbing the handle and going, this is loud. You can always press the button though and close the exhaust up, but you know, where's the fun in that? The price spread is wide here, as you might imagine. A P300 4-cylinder coupe starts at $62,750. At the top end, the F-Type R coupe starts at $104,350. And then there are convertible versions of each which add $2,000 to $3,000 per model. This one, as tested, it's $113,000. Now, that's not cheap, but it's not that bad either when you consider this is a gorgeous luxury sports coupe making nearly 600 horsepower. Sure, we prefer the older face a bit more, but we're happy that the exhaust crackle hasn't fully disappeared, and it's nice to see the interior tech evolve a bit to meet more modern standards. The F-Type is a great option to stand out amongst a sea of 911 buyers, and if you get the R version here, make quite a bit more noise too.